Hello, and thank you for joining us on this week's Rise and Thrive with EAG Health, where we discuss all things health. I'm Veronica Hyatt. I'm a Vice President of Client Success here at EAG, and I'm also the mom of a 7th grader and a 4th grader, both of whom started remote learning today. So this topic today is highly relevant to me. In fact, I suspect this will be highly relevant to a lot of the people in the audience. There's a lot of questions going on about how to help our children through this difficult time. Today, we want to make this an interactive series, so please use the chat feature, or excuse me, the Q&A feature if you have questions, and we'll do our best to get to them. Today, we're joined by Sheva Ganz. She is both a single parent coach and an expressive art therapist. Welcome, Sheva. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I know that there's a lot of hot topics to address, especially around children and stress and going back to school and how the pandemic has affected all of that. And I work with children and with parents as a therapist and as a single parent coach dealing with stress. I mean, the coronavirus is new, but stress is not something new. Just the virus has kind of put everything on us all at the same time. And the work that I do is help parents find solutions to the stress in their lives, how to look at the patterns that they have, how to fix the parenting that they might need to be doing on themselves, how to fix some of the parenting that they've had from the past, and how to repair the relationships in their lives, specifically to their kids, to themselves, and to other people. And that's the work that I do. And so I'm highly familiar with how stress affects parents and children.
Oh, good. We want to get into all of that today, but in 30 minutes. So let's jump in. Let's just talk about specifically how you're finding the pandemic is affecting the children. How are they feeling? What are they experiencing?
So children experience it in a variety of different ways, and we've definitely seen a progression of different reactions initially, and mirroring our own experiences as well. Initially, when the pandemic hit, it was just fear and chaos. And so children were reflecting that experiences because we as adults were so thrown off guard. We were so scared. We had no idea. We were scared for our health. We were scared for our children's and for our loved ones and for the world. And children were really scared. All of a sudden, school is shut down. Things that we consider to be basic stability in our lives, and for our children, which stability is such an important piece of their sense of safety, that was just all of a sudden one day, that's it, it's over, you're home. So that was that, like, kind of the episode or period of a lot of fear and anxiety. And then that really, for better or for worse, got normalized. And, you know, we just became used to it. And I've noticed with my clients, and I have 3 children of my own, we moved away from that initial fear to frustration. And they're just really frustrated. They're tired, they're lonely, they're annoyed, they're easily triggered. And while I hope we as parents can see that there are a lot of good things can come from this, or maybe have come, we've been able to spend more time together as a family. You know, you have less commute time. It has changed our lives, that there are some things that could have been better. It still has added a lot of extra stressors. And while we do get extra family time, all of the disruptions and the changes that have happened for children can have detrimental effects. So while the children aren't at risk for the virus the way that we are at risk and adults are at risk, the disruption that it caused and is still causing in their lives can have really negative and effects on their health and on their behavior.
Yeah. Can you tell us about some of the behaviors? What does fear look like in a child? And I mean, a younger child and an older child. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't look the same in a 4th grader as it does in a 10th grader. What behaviors are we looking for?
So that's interesting, because at its core root, fear is actually the same in all of us, from infancy to adulthood. Fear is a response that we have when we sense a danger, and fear is our body's natural response it's informing us something is dangerous. You need to do something. It's our body's natural alarm system. We are still programmed kind of to caveman days, when that part of our brain, the amygdala, which is the fear-based center, is scanning the environment of, you know, is there a dinosaur, a tiger, a bear, is something going to attack us? So we're looking for things that feel unsafe. And when we find something, that's when the alarm bells go off. And when the alarm bells go off, that puts our body into a response mode, and we all respond differently. So we will either fight, I mean, the common ones are fight, flight, or freeze. So you'll respond very aggressively, or you'll freeze up, you don't know what to do, or you'll, what did I say? Fight, flight, or run away, avoid. I gotta get my brain back on track. So those are the natural responses to fear, and those are how we nowadays respond through our behavior. It looks differently depending on your age, but what's actually happening inside us is the same for all ages. Our body can't tell the difference whether it's an actual bear attacking us or school shut down and I'm stuck at home for 6 months. So when a bear attacks us, it's a small period of time. The bear comes, the bear goes. And when we're exposed to a threatening situation over such a long period of time, that's when the detrimental effects can kick in. Because when we go into fight, flight, or freeze, our body releases cortisol. And cortisol is our stress hormone and adrenaline, and that's what kicks us into action to keep us safe. And that's okay when it's in small doses, because that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be released in small doses. But what happens nowadays is it's not being released in small doses. It's being released on a constant stream, because there have been so many disruptions and so many things that have made us and our children feel unsafe. And when we feel unsafe, that's when everything kind of goes off the charts. And that can look like aggression, anxiety. It has a lot of physical effects like stomach aches when there's too much cortisol, headaches, child can be withdrawn, hyperactivity, and inability to focus, especially now that we're putting our kids in front of a screen all day long. So that plus the cortisol and the stress, it's really hard to sit and focus. So this elevated and constant exposure to cortisol and stress has effects on behavior, on our emotions, and on our physical health.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a lot for a parent. Like, how do we attack these? How do we support the children? Is one more important to handle first? And then how do you handle it? And does it look different in a 4th grader than a 10th grader? How do we support these kids?
So yes and no. So great questions. They're all kind of tied together. It's like a rope that's knotted. When you address one issue, when you untie one part of the knot, then kind of the rest of the rope will start to untangle. So because they're all related issues, our behavior, our mental state, our emotions are all intricately involved with one another. So when you address one, it will have overflow to the others. Really why stress is so challenging for children is because they do not have a vocabulary or a means of expressing what's going on the same way that adults do. And the truth is, many adults don't either have the right vocabulary to express what they're feeling. But with children, it's harder. And oftentimes children see that their parents are so stressed out and they don't want to add more stress. Like, we as parents have no problem calling up our friends or our parents and dumping all of our stress on our friends. But children have a protective nature where they don't want to add to it, so they can hold more stuff in. And holding stuff in is just, it doesn't go away. It just festers and it sits inside, and we kind of ingest these feelings of fear, anxiety, worry, concern, and that's what manifests. So teaching children how to express their emotions is a #1 base tool and skill that you can give your children to help them in times like this. And there's actually a name for it. It's called affect labeling. When we combine vocabulary and when we kick off the part of our brain that is responsible for language, it has been shown statistically and scientifically to have a calming effect on our brains. So when we start to get different parts of our brains working together, because when we're in a fear state, the amygdala takes charge. When you combine language, when you combine a certain type of reason, then that starts to calm yourself down, and it brings you to, it just brings you to a calmer place. So a cute way to remember it is name it to tame it. When you're experiencing
it down.
Yeah, name it to tame it. I love it. I use it with my adult clients also. And that is just say what you're feeling. You don't always have to have a solution. We're a very solution-minded society, but sometimes we just need to experience and express what we're feeling and what we're going through. And that release and that expression is already maybe even the solution. So I'm feeling really frustrated. I'm feeling really scared. It looks like you're feeling really concerned. Sometimes they may need some help in identifying what they're feeling. And when you acknowledge what they're feeling, that's a sense of relief of like, yeah, you get it.
Oh, wow. Okay. What are some of the practical ways at home, assuming a lot of people are doing the remote or some version of hybrid learning, that we can set up an environment to help avoid them experiencing these? And maybe that's not possible to avoid it. So maybe it's more about naming it to tame it and, expressing it. How do we manage that?
Well, we're never going to be able to fully dodge stress in our lives. And while I hope we never experience anything like this, or that our children never do when we have so much stress, this is really a good opportunity to teach our children how to deal with the challenges that life throws us. So we're never going to escape stress, and we're never going to create an environment that's entirely stress-free. It's how we react and how we deal in these circumstances, first of all, that model to our children, and then give them the skills that they're going to need as they get older. But specifically, what parents can do for online school right now to help mitigate some of these reactions are creating a sense of structure and a rhythm to your child's day. I know this is going to look different for every family, because some schools have their own set schedule now where children have to be on at 8 or 9. Some schools are more lax as long as you get the work done. So creating a schedule that's not too strict, that has some wiggle room, but that can give children some type of expectation of what they can look forward to their day. That is a great way to give children a sense of stability in an environment of chaos, which is kind of where we still are. And another great tool is, if possible, this is also dependent on people's personal circumstances right now, if you can define a space for learning. We are creatures of habit. We should eat in the kitchen or eat at a table. We sleep in a bed. And that definition helps us stay focused to the task that we're doing. It's very clear. Oh, if I'm at the table, I'm eating right now. If I'm in bed, I'm sleeping. So creating a space that is devoted to work, a child's desk, and setting it up, that's more, creating this space will help them a lot. Also with stability and feeling safe, and also with focus. Like, okay, when they sit down, their mind can click on, now I'm in learning mode. As opposed to, let's clear the dining room table from dinner last night, and here's your computer. That's a pretty scattered approach, and that might be contributing to why they're feeling unfocused. And I have one more tip. The third one is, as much as you can, try and get your children to be as self-directed as possible. Having them feel that they have a sense of control, and that's coming from within, is a great way for them to feel stable right now. And I know that's also going to vary between ages, but you can have children have self-directed behavior at any age. It just looks different. And finding out what they can do for themselves. Can you guys make your own breakfast? Like, what can they make lunch? What can they do? Can you set your schedule for the day? Finding those small areas where they have a little bit more control and combining it with the other two is a great technique to help them feel calmer and more secure right now.
Oh, very helpful. You can see here I'm taking notes. This is great.
Great.
So all of this, a schedule and creating space, giving them a sense of control, that all happens in the house. Tell me a little bit about what this isolation is doing to the kids. And are they connecting on Zoom? What else do they really need? This is the first time all the parents are dealing with this much isolation as well.
Oh my gosh. So isolation is a big one, because we have a fundamental basic need as humans to connect with other people, especially with children. That is how they learn about life, is through their connections and their interactions and their relationships. So they've definitely been, I tell my kids, like, you guys are in a time period in history, like this is something seminal that we are experiencing. And like any challenge, it's not ideal. They are losing out by not having those life interactions, but how are we going to make the best of it? So we can always make the best of it. And what we can do is finding the ways that we can help our children feel connected. So the first one is with us, within the family. How connected are you? What does that feel like for your children? And I always recommend I know it's hard, but at least 15 minutes of one-on-one time with each child. I mean, if you can't do 15, if you have a lot of children, even 5, 10, and setting it up for times that it's not when they're having a breakdown or not when, oh, okay, let's go find some quiet time. But it's part of the routine that they come to expect it. And that just, I call it their emotional piggy bank. When we invest in a bank account, we put money in for their future. That's what we do when we spend time with them one-on-one, is that we are building up their sense of somebody loves me and somebody's here for me and somebody just wants to be with me. So really, really investing in their piggy bank right now emotionally will help them a lot. And the other thing is, find the opportunities that you can that work with you and the way that you're operating right now socially for children to connect with others. So whether that looks like maybe some Zoom parties after school hours, or if you have a backyard and maybe a socially distant play date with a neighbor or a cousin or a friend, just as many opportunities that you can find that still lets your child have those connections and those interactions within our new norm for right now.
Yeah. That is very helpful. We have a couple of questions coming in. I think what parents are asking as I'm interpreting these questions is isolation for younger children versus older children. Like, how much is appropriate connection outside of the home for a 4 or 5-year-old, a middle schooler, and a high schooler?
That's a hard question to answer for a few reasons. One, depending on the temperament of the child and of the parents, and also what the parent's comfort level is with socializing these days. And I think it's just being a little bit, if you practice some of the other techniques that I mentioned, specifically name it to tame it and modeling that behavior of communication. So giving your child that recognition that they can come and talk to you about their feelings, you can gauge where they're at. Do they need a little bit more isolation? Do they not need as much? Can you pull back? And there's also, we got to take everything that I'm saying with a dose of reality, that we are limited in what we can do and what we can give our children right now, especially with younger children. They can get a lot from you as a parent. It's as our children get older and definitely hit those like preteen, adolescent years where they need more social interaction because they're creating their identity, and a lot of their identity comes from specifically not being us or close to us. Like, they want to get us far away, but younger children are so happy to be with us. A 4 or 5-year-old like intrinsically loves their parents. They haven't caught on yet that we're as imperfect as we are. This is prime opportunity to milk your perfection in the eyes of your children. So I would say focus on that. Really just be present as much as you can. Try and just be present and fun. Like, what I'm telling everybody is, even if you're so stressed and you are so overwhelmed and scared and feeling just like you're at your end, find ways to infuse play and fun into your life as an adult and for your children.
That's great advice. Hard to find the time.
Hard to find the time. And you know what? Sometimes it's even like, look up some jokes online and say jokes at dinner, or just something to lighten the mood. We don't have to just sit in the space of heaviness and overwhelm and, oh my God, and doomsday approach. That, we're together as a family, and hopefully we have our health, we have our home, we have our family together. What can we focus on that we can be grateful for? Gratitude is like a huge tool and technique to tap into now. What do we have that we can be grateful for? And something that we have is our humor, our sense of humor, and our sense of play. And children, that is their language of expression, and they feel safe through play. So bringing play back in for whatever age, even if it's older kids, board games, or there's a lot of stuff online, but I would say actually as much as you can, try and get offline when they're not in school. And there's just so many ways to be creative these days. There's so many resources out there.
That's a great point. When you're spending your family time together, how do you talk to your parents, your children? How do parents talk to the children about the pandemic? How much explaining the situation, does it make it worse? Does it make it better? What's the right level of detail?
So again, this is also dependent on age of children and their temperament. Are they a child that needs to know everything and that functions with, some children need to be 3 steps ahead and have to know what's coming. And some kids are like, oh, are we going on a trip today? Cool. So being aware of your child's temperament and what they need will be really helpful. I do think that some acknowledgement of what's going on, age appropriate, is a good way to dialogue with your children. There's something going on in the world, and whatever is appropriate, you have to really gauge the age level for your children. And it's kind of a need to know basis. So telling them things that will affect them. Do they need to know the death rate of every country that's happening out there? I don't know if they need to know that, but they should be aware of the safety protocols, of why safety protocols are important, what happens if we don't stick to safety protocols. Those are things that are relevant to them, and that's information that gives them a sense of control. Oh, okay, I can keep myself safe if I do this or this. Nothing is foolproof, but at least these are actions that we can take. So that is a very positive way to talk about what's going on. So I would say overall, a little bit of information. For sure, as the older they get, the more information you can talk about, but not pretending like nothing's going on. That creates a sense of just a secrecy, and that's actually really frightening. Where you know something's going on, but you don't know what it is, so it's scary.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. It's really helpful. What kind of things can parents be doing with children in the non-school hours? And I know you said one-on-one time is incredibly important to make this transition to our, I hate to say it, new normal more smooth.
So again, just repeating, play, a one-on-one time. Those are my 2 biggest suggestions. So finding ways to connect with your children so I guess individually, one-on-one. As a family, how can you come together as a family and create that sense of belonging? A lot of children have lost their sense of belonging because they don't belong to this social structure. They don't go to school. I know my son is an avid soccer player. Now he doesn't have his team anymore. So those parts of themselves where they feel like they belong to these groups are now cut off. So really strengthening their sense of belonging by, we have this family, this is who we are, and families come in all shapes and sizes. So if they're, you are a family, you're just a family by existing together. So creating that sense of belonging by doing fun things together, talking about what you like to do together. Family meetings, I'm a big fan of family meetings that creates this sense of democracy and togetherness, and let's talk about what we want, what's important to us, what can we do. That's actually a really great suggestion of having a family meeting and talking about acknowledging what we're all going through. So it's not necessarily bringing in all the details of the pandemic, but it's acknowledgement of, the past few months have really been different. And there have been some really hard things that we've had to gone through, and we've had to adjust. What do you guys need? Asking your children what they need, you'd be surprised and amazed with what children can come up with, and giving them that sense of autonomy, that sense of contribution, and that sense of belonging, that I'm part of this family and somebody wants to hear my voice and my opinion. And also you'll get some great ideas about what will help them feel better. But one thing I want to add, what is equally important, and some people seem to forget, and this is the often used, it's getting very overused metaphor of when you're on an airplane and they tell you if something goes wrong, the parent has to put their oxygen mask on first, because if you are not functional, you can't help your child. And that is self-care, self-care, self-care. It's the buzzword right now. But I have seen so many examples, especially now, of parents hitting their breaking point. Because in the beginning, we were in such a reactionary mode. It was so stressful, it was so scary that we weren't even breaking, because it was like we all went into overdrive of however that looked. And now having such an extended period of time in stress is when I'm seeing parents really like that final strand in the rope is just snapping. And parents call me like, oh my God, I lost it with my child. So really making sure that if you're at your last strand, don't let it get to the breaking point, and take some time, however you can, some time to regroup, whatever you need. Can you take a bath? Can you go for a 10-minute walk? Can you buy you know what? I start my day with a vanilla candle, like a minute. I just smell the candle, take a deep breath. And that's a moment that I could take for myself. And that just resets everything. So where in your day can you find those reset buttons so that you're not ending up at that last strand? And that is equally as important as any of the other tips and techniques I mentioned before.
Yeah, that is super helpful. Let me ask you like a very related question. How do I explain to my kids that I need these boundaries, that mommy needs time to smell the candle, because their need is so big in the moment and they're looking at me smelling a candle. It doesn't add up to them. How do we help them understand? Because they
I love that question, but that's exactly what role modeling is. And that is, so parents often have this guilt. If I take these 5 minutes, if I take these 10 minutes, like, they feel so guilty. But the truth is, it's the biggest gift you can give to your child, because they're seeing how important it is to take care of themselves. And as they get older, now they're going to know that, you know, it's okay to take care of myself. You cannot function. Like, you will, every parent will hit a breaking point. There's so much going on. It is necessary. And yet we somehow have this belief that we're doing something wrong and that we should feel guilty about maybe taking a 10-minute coffee break or leaving the house and going for a walk. And I think even saying that clear, I love you so much, but I just need 5 minutes of quiet. It helps me be a better mom. It helps me be a happier person. Really putting it on the table and being very clear, where it has nothing to do with your behavior. This is not a punishment. I'm not trying to get away from you. But this is just, I need 5 minutes of quiet. Look at this candle that I bought. Or you can include them in the process. You know, if you're out shopping, like, mommy wants to spend 1 minute at the beginning of her day smelling a candle. Can you help me pick out one that smells good? And then you're including them in that. And you're also letting them know that 2-3 minutes is important. And you're setting that boundary, that it's okay to have that kind of a structure and a boundary around self-care.
I feel relief from that direction. Thank you so much.
Good, you don't even need the candle.
Right. I'm just going to watch this video again. This has been so informative. I have a page of notes here, and I have now permission to take care of myself, which I really appreciate.
You have permission, and anybody else who is watching this has full permission. And like, it's not an endless amount of time for self-care.
Fair enough.
I feel like I have to say that also. Use your reason.
That's very funny. So we hope for the audience that this was very helpful, and they got some good tips, tricks, and insights in how to manage through this situation. I hope, do you have any last words, Sheva, that you'd like to share with everyone before we wrap up here?
No, if anybody has any questions about anything that I said, you can find me at my website, shevagans.com. I think it might be listed somewhere. I'm also on Instagram, shevagans.com. I'm easy to find, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have around parenting, stress, or mental health, or creativity. So feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. This has been great. And to the audience, please check us out on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram for future episodes of Rise and Thrive. Thanks, everyone.